the one thing I'm really noticing as of late is that it's a reminder that Tesla is very much, if it was a person, it would be a very high achieving engineer that has strengths and weaknesses. And so what I mean by this is, at least from different kind of personalities and people that I've been exposed to in my life and my career, which I'm very thankful to have that exposure. I've noticed that there are select few people that are just such high achievers and they're so good at what they do. They're convinced that the end result is all that matters, and how we get there is a short-term thing, and we shouldn't be too focused about it. One of my friends groups that I had earlier, there was somebody that was a very a great engineer, super good at what they did. They were so convinced that the end result was going to work out, that the stuff that they were working on in the middle, like how they were describing how they were approaching it, like questions like, hey, are you concerned about how this stuff is going to impact your team members, how your work is going to impact people in different, like the parallel teams or teams that have some downstream effects from what you're working on. And he would literally say, I don't care, because I know this is right. And of course, if you're right in the end, things could be forgiven, once we get to that point. But it doesn't discount the fact that what's being worked in the middle is also very important. And so how I view this as within the context of Tesla is that Tesla is very much in that mold. The execution of the company obviously is, I would argue, probably second to none in the industry that it's in. So auto. Highest, if not the highest, one of the highest, if not the highest margins from a product perspective. Cash to debt ratio is stellar. Growth is stellar. Talent is stellar. One could argue when it comes to execution, leadership, stellar. There's a lot of great things going for it. But you think about the sort of environment that the company has created, where it's created this community around itself through a lot of transparency and a lot of openness in this sort of YouTube world and the Twitter world that is very passionate about what Tesla does, and it's very passionate about what Elon Musk does, and very passionate about the mission of the company, extremely passionate. And it's attracted a lot of people to that mission through that transparency of just being very human in the way that it sort of approaches and tackles problems. And now we're in this sort of different stage of the company where we've transitioned out of, say, 2016 to 2019, where the company really upholded these morals, call it, in a world that was almost out to get it. For folks that have been following the company for a while, you remember all the FUD attacks, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt attacks that the company had, all the short pressure. I was, I think, 40% short at one point in time. Daily news reports about how terrible of a person Elon Musk is, how incredibly stupid Tesla is as a business, how unreliable the cars are, car fires, autopilot's killing people, all the workers are being treated unfairly. They're just a bunch of racists, right? I mean, it's like crazy. And the company didn't have, per se, a means to defend itself, I think, at that point. It could have, but not nearly as much as it does now. It was strapped for cash quite a bit. And the organic YouTube and Twitter community that was born out of that hardship, so your Dave Lees, your Galleys, your SMRs, your K10s, your Omars, everybody, Kim Paquette's. There's just so many people I could name. Warren Redlicks. There's so many different people, that started coming up during that time. Rob Maurer, if I didn't mention him, and so many others that came to, say, quote unquote, rescue of the company from like the standpoint of ensuring that the perception of the company was corrected, that the fear, uncertainty, and doubt sort of mission of the forces that wanted Tesla to topple was corrected. And they did so not because the company asked them to, but because they wanted to. And I think they would tell you that. And I'm kind of speaking on their behalf when I say that. But after speaking with a lot of them in person and sort of gauging their character, they struck me as people that came to that company's defense because they're passionate about what the company stood for and what the leader stood for. And that's why I'm here. I'm no different, right? The difference now, though, and this is sort of, I think, what's one of the pain points in the community, one of my areas of criticism that I think the company should consider, is that now the company is in a very different stage of its life cycle where it has that financial stability. There's no other car company, and again, Tesla's not really a car company, but let's define it by the measure of how many cars they sell per year. A gigantic percentage of their revenue is automotive, but their financial situation and their growth rates are very much not, which implies that the company is super well positioned to execute in whatever they feel like executing in. So within that frame of reference or that sort of thing I just outlined, I find it a little bit sort of weird that the company is, I don't want to say is unwilling. They haven't really prioritized, number one, different things that happen in, say, media, the FUD that could derailed sentiment for the company. And of course, we can talk about does that even matter or not? But I just find it odd that a company that's as successful as it is doesn't view that as something that it should pay attention to in a sense, especially as its influence grows and as its ability to make impactful change grows. It's no secret that the bigger Tesla gets, the more hate it's going to get. The whole Twitter thing is a perfect example, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing too is I think because the Tesla community and folks that are so passionate about Tesla and Elon and all the other companies, I don't want to say they've gotten used to it, but we're all so willing to fight the FUD that I think it might be hiding some of the pain points that come from being in the environment that we're in, and the company is not really putting any resources or time or effort into doing that, right? So what I mean by that is perhaps the Twitter sphere, the Tesla sphere that's out there fighting FUD and on behalf of the company, in some way, Tesla's in a way perhaps like, well, they've got it. And I'm not saying they're doing that, but I wonder if there's a little bit of, they've got it. It's sort of, we've tried it in the past. We have this very natural, very, very organic community around it that's quote unquote protecting the brand and protecting how people should perceive the company. And that's going to be more powerful than whatever we do. So, let them do it. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I think as a company gets bigger and these voices become harder, I do think there is a little bit of, it's going to be much more impactful if the company itself were to do that, say FUD fighting or communicating with the world on how well it's executing, like your Sawyer Merritt, myself, whoever, just pick whoever you want. Definitely not me within that context, but let's pick Sawyer Merritt and as an example. Sawyer is so good at taking a lot of information that comes out on Twitter, data points, and then framing them in a way that is actually, it makes a lot more sense than whatever the headline is from say the mainstream media article. But I think at some point that sort of messaging would be so much more impactful if it came from a Tesla approved account or some sort of account that's backed by Tesla that says, yes, this is how we're doing. There's only so much weight I think people in the Tesla community have in conveying the FUD fighting or the positive things about the company and Elon Musk and all that good stuff. And I think we're at the point now from a size perspective that I think Tesla should really seriously consider it. They should really seriously consider it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what the right answer is, but it's very obvious to me that there is a significant portion of the community, right or wrong, I'm not saying if it's correct or incorrect, but it's reality that there's a significant portion of the community that is uneasy about where the company's perception is and the leader's perception is and the stock's performance and the haziness about what's going to happen here in the next year or two. And all of that, I think, is also amplified in the fact that we're in a recessionary environment and there's folks hurting. I don't think that should be ignored. I think that should be looked at. And I'm not saying here that Tesla's ignoring it, but I do think a little bit more action from that perspective might be helpful. And even in say 2 to 3 years time, when FSD is complete, when the Tesla bot is about to launch, when Cybertruck is out on the roads and all this good stuff, Tesla Semi, all of this could be for naught, sure. But the fact that the company is executing this well and a lot of the retail community doesn't feel like that's enough in itself says that something needs to be fixed. So those are my thoughts. That's how I'm thinking about this whole thing. And I'm trying to be as impartial and unbiased as humanly possible. I think one of my roles in this community is to be some sort of voice for the community itself. But at the same time, I think I bring value in analyzing the situation. And what my gut is telling me is that, yes, I think we will be fine because if there's one thing Tesla does extremely well and they have a track record of is execution. But when a significant portion of the retail base doesn't view that as enough, then there has to be like, or they don't view that as something that's actually going to happen, or they view like the leader doesn't have their best interest in mind. We need to actually agree that that is a problem and we need to look at how we should fix it, but we should do so with an open mind and we should do so through dialogue and we should do so through hearing the other side instead of saying, well, if you just focus on the fundamentals, you shouldn't even worry about it. Or, the other thing that I don't like hearing is like, well, you shouldn't have invested in the company in the first place. I don't know if that's the right message we want to send. I think the tone needs to be very different. It needs to be more understanding. But let's also stay on the facts, right? Stay on the facts that the company is extremely well positioned to survive into the next few years and decades. But again, if that in itself is not enough to appease an investor, then there's something else going on. And it could just be as simple as holding a Q&A session, bro. Like it could just be like Tesla and Elon's like, yo, let's hold a Q&A session for 2.5 hours with our investors. Let them air out their grievances and what they're concerned about, and then do so once every 6 months. I don't know, like be innovative, right? And this is where I start feeling like Tesla and Elon can do a really good job here, is that innovate on your communications with a retail investor. Innovate on your ability to fight FUD. Like these are things that are within the wheelhouse of problem solving. And it deals with human emotion, yes, but it's still a problem that can be solved, you know, and I think it's important enough. And this is sort of the double-edged sword of having such a large retail investing community as well. Ever since Tesla's inception, and Elon has done an incredible job with this, he's gathered so much support from the retail shareholder, and props to him. He's done an excellent job at bringing returns to those investors. Such a good job. In the same token, Tesla has grown to a much bigger size. Its retail investor base is significantly larger than it used to be. And that's one of the that's one of the things that public companies have to do, especially if you're positioning yourself in a situation where you are catering to so many retail investors and you have been so open about saying, we love the retail investor, you know, I'm not going to let you down, buy the dip. Like, you know, these are things that Elon Musk has said. I still can't believe he said that, but he said it. So at Tesla, I think it would go a long way if they prioritize that. Of course, engineering is the most important. Of course, ensuring that your ramps and your execution of the company from a product and service standpoint is really going to be your bread and butter. But if you've invested so much time in building the community that you have, when the going gets rough, I think it's important to also listen to those that are in pain and to try your best to, let them know that it is going to be fine. And it shouldn't be up to me. It shouldn't be up to Dave. It shouldn't be up to Sawyer. It shouldn't be up to SMR. It shouldn't be up to Rob. It shouldn't be up to Warren. It shouldn't be up to Gary. It shouldn't be up to any of these people. It should be up to the company to ensure that the execution of the company itself is really what matters. And we should be focusing on the positives and not the quote unquote the noise that's happening now. 18 minutes of rant time there. Let me know what you think.